Good morning, everyone. Great to see you all here. Great to see all those introductions happening in the chat. Good morning. So I'm going to get us started off today. My name is Dana Kuhnlein. I'm the campaign director for ReImagine Appalachia, joining you from bitterly cold Cincinnati. And shout out to all the parents in the room today whose kids have a snow day and may be joining us this morning. So I'll be in that number with you. So great to see you all. So we're so excited to present this event today, which we have been working on since September or October of last year with dozens of partners across the region who helped us with input into the agenda, into the speakers. We're so grateful for our mini speakers. This is the second of a 2-day event. And so thanks to everyone who put together such amazing information yesterday, as well as our participants, because we do see this as a participatory event that is made stronger because of all of you attending. And a special thank you to our note takers and our ReImagine Appalachia logistical queens, especially Molly and Annie, and all the other people who make events like this happen. So this is set up as a meeting so that everybody can participate in the chat and get to know each other as much as possible. But that does mean we need you all to stay on mute during the event so that we can hear our speakers, etc. So appreciate y'all working with us on that. But please do use that chat as a place for conversation and networking and introduce yourselves. So a little note about what we're doing here today. So this is our 4th annual strategy summit. And as we've done the last 3 years, we start with a keynote panel of experts in the field to give us their thoughts and ideas related to the questions of the day. The panel is meant as a jumpstart for the conversation and will be followed by 4 breakout sessions where you can choose which breakout session you want to join. We'll have the options for those after the panel. And you'll be asked to share your own thoughts and ideas in a facilitated discussion. Essentially, we think of those as roundtable discussions. And at the end of the day, our goal at ReImagine is to use the feedback and information from this event to create an action plan for our work, which is why we have note takers to capture those thoughts, and we use that to inform our action plan for 2024. So we also want to share upcoming events. We have a number of great ones planned throughout January, February, and March. And we can share the link to that page on the website where we list those events. If this is your first time joining ReImagine Appalachia for a conversation, we hope it won't be the last. And we love to collaborate with folks on events. So if you have ideas for events you want to see, please be in touch. Similarly, we have a very active blog, and we'd love to chat about highlighting your work, and we recommend you check that out. We have some great blogs. A couple tech notes for today. We'll stream this to Facebook Live. You can help us promote the event by sharing the link to your Facebook page. All the breakouts will be recorded and notes taken, and all registrants will receive links to the notes and the recordings, as well as the slideshows, but we will not send out a participant list because there's nearly 500 people registered, but we're happy to facilitate introductions. If you see participants you'd like to get contact information for, please be in touch. We have a quick poll before we move into our main panel. So please tell us if we're ready to hold that poll. The question for the poll will be, what are your biggest hopes for new federal resources in your community? And so there's a link in the chat, and if you click that link, then you can fill out this poll and your answers will actually show up on the screen there. So sometimes people have a hard time taking the poll, so you can also just put your answers in the chat and we will move those into the poll for you, so you can fill that out. But what we're going to talk a lot today about the opportunities we have, but as they say in Spider-Man, with great with great power comes great responsibility. So how do we do this right? One thing we talk a lot about ReImagine Appalachia is having that 3-legged stool that helps us balance to think about the values of racial justice, economic justice, including labor and workers, as well as environmental justice. And then if we, develops the thinking we're doing, if those aren't able to balance on those three legs, then we risk the whole thing falling over. And so how can we do this right when we look at this moment? Looking at that screen develop, it looks like y'all are full of fantastic ideas for how we can do this right. I'm so excited to dig into this, and thank you all for participating and digging into that poll. The last thing I'll note is one more tech note, which is that if you want to enable closed captions, that is a possibility. You can go into you'll either see a note that says captions, or you'll see three little dots. And if you click on that, then that will say captions, and that will allow you to just get a AI transcript of the words that we'll share today. Right. Look at all those beautiful ideas. Inclusion, sustainability, jobs, accessible. Those seems to be some of our biggest ones. We'll also share these word clouds after the event because we all find them inspiring and fascinating. I am so excited to learn from you all. And with that, I want to move us over to Joanne with Ohio River Valley Initiative, who is going to facilitate our panel today.
Good morning. Thank you all so much for joining us today for the second day of Reimagine Appalachia's 2024 Strategy Summit. It's great to see so many people joining. My name is Joanne Kilgour. I'm the Executive Director of the Ohio River Valley Institute, and I'm so pleased to be with you to moderate this important panel, A Story of Hope, Reimagining Appalachian Communities with Federal Climate Resources. We have a fantastic panel today during which we'll hear from Appalachian community leaders about how federal climate infrastructure resources are helping to set the stage for a brighter future for our communities and workers in the Ohio River Valley. Today, we'll address how we can use our incremental successes to communicate the extent of new opportunities for the region and work together to tell the story of why this work in this region can be a model for the nation. Communities throughout Appalachia have been engaged in climate sustainability and community-driven economic development planning for decades, but often ran into a lack of resources to support the implementation of these well-thought-out plans and policies. The passage of the Federal Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and Inflation Reduction Act have flipped that dynamic on its head, providing historic levels of funding for state and local governments, as well as communities and nonprofit organizations to invest in strategies that will bring us closer to the future we want to see, one that supports our workers, our local economies, and the climate. But this tremendous opportunity also brought with it significant challenges, from accelerated timeline for funding applications to multiple funding opportunities available from multiple agencies at the same time. Just tracking all the opportunities and deadlines could be, and is for some, a full-time job. And of course, it can be more difficult for already overextended rural governments and nonprofits to systematically access this funding. But despite these capacity constraints, communities throughout Appalachia are succeeding in pulling down these funds to support their community and climate priorities, seeding hope and setting an example for what's possible when we work together. The Inflation Reduction Act alone provides $369 billion in clean energy and climate investments in the clean energy economy that could generate more than 9 million jobs in the next 10 years. $3 billion in environmental and climate justice block grants, $1.3 billion in neighborhood access and equity grant programs to promote community resilience and access to safe, affordable transportation, approximately $40 billion toward environmental justice with funds for air monitoring, pollution reduction, access to transportation, and more. $27 billion in funds to create the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund with significant money for green banks, and billions in direct incentives and tax credits for electric vehicles and home electrification. And that doesn't even include programs available through the bipartisan infrastructure law that are supporting grid modernization, weatherization and energy efficiency, environmental remediation, including funding to help states like those in our region begin to access and address the pervasive legacy pollution from orphan and abandoned gas wells and abandoned mine lands and more. Panelists here this morning have secured funding for their work and their communities through these federal programs, including Accompanying Returning Citizens with Hope, ARCH, that was selected for the EPA Environmental Justice Collaborative Problem-Solving Program for a project that seeks to provide justice-involved citizens re-entering after serving prison sentences with the opportunity to secure employment through Impact Solar. Economic Development Greater East, or EDGE, that's part of a coalition that received $42 million from the USDA, marking the largest single investment in the Appalachian food system. The West Virginia Community Development Hub is engaged with the Interagency Working Group on Coal and Power Plant Communities and Economic Revitalization to create a national network of energy communities seeking to retool local and regional economies. And ACT Ohio, which has been at the forefront of working to ensure that provisions like those in the CHIPS and Science Act support skilled trades jobs and apprenticeships, investing in our union workforce. So often, these opportunities and organizations fly under the radar, and those not directly involved may not realize the great work happening around them and what has made it possible. So I'm thrilled today to help bring these stories to all of you and spread this hope and inspiration across Appalachia. We're honored to be joined today by this fantastic panel representing these organizations that are leveraging this historic federal climate infrastructure funding to build hope and shared prosperity in their communities. Our panelists this morning are Amelia Bandy, Executive Director of EDGE, Wendy Tarr, Founder and Executive Director of ARCH, Kitty French, Communications Director for ACT Ohio, and the Ohio State Building and Construction Trades Council, and Katie Loudin, Director of Strategic Development at the West Virginia Community Development Hub. We'll hear from each of our panelists about the great work they're doing, followed by a moderated panel discussion, and we really want to encourage your questions and engagement, so we'll have time near the end of the conversation to respond to audience questions via the Q&A function. Thank you all so much, and I'd now like to pass it to Katie Loudin with the West Virginia Community Development Hub. Katie?
Thank you. Thanks, Joanne. It's wonderful to be here with you all this morning. It's very snowy and cold from Buchanan, West Virginia, where I am located. So yeah, as Joanne said, I'm the Director of Strategic Development for the West Virginia Community Development Hub. And I appreciate being invited into this conversation today. So the Hub is the leading statewide community development nonprofit organization in West Virginia. So a little bit about what we do. Last year we provided professional community coaching services to 27 communities across Central Appalachia. And what this looks like is we have community coaches who coach volunteer community leadership teams at the grassroots community-based level to help them build sustained development in rural communities. In addition to our professional community coaching work, the Hub also grows the overall community economic development system in West Virginia through really dynamic and collaborative partnerships that use innovative approaches to address systemic challenges for rural development. So our approach at the Hub really is to walk alongside communities, and we work with what this looks like is just us working with teams of West Virginians to define the future they want to see and to build the skills and connections to get there. So we really do believe that when West Virginians have the opportunities and tools they need to make positive change, they can really create a transformational impact in their communities. So the Hub's models kind of works in two ways. We have our community coaching work and we have our systems development work, but these two really go hand in hand. So the Hub coaching model is to really identify and build local leadership capacity at the community level. So we help communities organize, help them we identify small core community leadership teams that are comprised of non-traditional leadership, and we help them get feedback from the broader community, plan and implement community and economic development projects and strategies. Some of these are really short-term wins. They might be creative placemaking projects, and some of them are really long-term redevelopment projects that make huge differences in rural downtowns and in small business development. The key for us is, again, building those strong local leadership teams who have the capacity to bring in diverse perspectives, to bring people who aren't used to being at the table, to bring their opinions in. They embrace critical feedback and continually engage the community in the process of community building and community development. At the same time that we're doing this intensive on-the-ground work, we are trying to attack the system-wide challenges that exist that are creating barriers for rural investment. And this looks like state and national level network building, convening folks across all these different geographic areas to do more learning and more research. And we work in a really rich network with partners to identify some of these challenges as well. And we've actually been in a deep research process over the last couple of years to uncover these kinds of challenges, and we'll be releasing a white paper later this year on barriers to federal investment in rural communities, especially where it's relevant in West Virginia, where you have compounding challenges of being rural and energy impacted. So stay tuned for that. The work is really great, and we're excited to bring this to the public forefront. So a little bit about why the hub, I think, is in this conversation is we were part of an historic award from the U.S. Economic Development Administration called Build Back Better. And we received this award in 2022 alongside some of our partners like Coalfield Development Corporation, Generation West Virginia, and just several university, public-private partnerships and philanthropy as well played a huge role in us coming together for the Act Now Coalition. And so we received this award, and the hub is leading the Community and Business Resilience Initiative, which is a project within this broader Act Now Coalition. And I think I don't have my eye on the chat because I have them on my notes, but I do think a link to the Act Now Coalition, is dropped in the chat. Thanks, Molly, for that. So like I said, we are leading the Community and Business Resilience Initiative, and this is a strategy within the Act Now Coalition. The program that we're running through this is called Accelerate West Virginia, and this is a community engagement and planning program that will coordinate citizen-led vision for downtown revitalization, small business development, and sustainable economic development across southern West Virginia. We're currently working in 6 communities and across southern West Virginia through this project, but we'll be expanding. Each program is 2 years, so we'll be expanding into new communities and identifying those in the future. So we're really excited about the community-based work that we're seeing, community members really determining what climate and economic resilience needs to look like on the ground for them. And this is being taken into small business context. This is being taken into systems and into workforce conversations in these clean energy jobs and green economy jobs, combined with the community effort, willingness, and desire to have great people and great opportunities in communities. We see ourselves sort of building the bridges for those things to happen through this award. This was an unprecedented investment to transition coal country and position the region to be a new hub of innovation for a clean energy economy. And like I said, we are leading the Community and Business Resilience Initiative, but there are other really fantastic projects that I would encourage you to read about through the website link that Molly provided. So another another piece of the hub's work alongside our community coaching work is what we do to work with community leaders to give them tools to tell their own stories and harness their narratives. So I think we all know that there are some really harmful national stereotypes about Appalachia and who we are. And often we can internalize that message. So we conducted some research in 2020 that found that by telling our stories, which are stories of resilience, hope, perseverance, and deep collaboration, the stories that we see every day in our communities, that we actually found that it can shift national audiences and their views about the region. But more importantly, we actually found that it shifts the way that we see ourselves as West Virginians and Appalachians. And so the lesson of storytelling and narrative change actually becomes that change is possible, and I can start it today in my community if I see an example from someone else in a community that looks like mine. So we found that when communities are empowered to tell their own stories, it really builds momentum and willpower for folks to keep going, and it inspires others. So leaders in this context are not someone who is elected or someone with only positional power, but leaders really at the grassroots in the Appalachian way are just everyday people who work together with other community members to create the communities that they want to live in. So we've been really intentional through our coaching curriculum and through our programs to pause communities in the community building process and to work with them so they can capture their small and big wins along the way. It's a critical and powerful component of the community development journey. And I think Molly's going to share a link to some of our community videos and case studies that can be found on our website if you're interested in looking at those. If you ever need a pick me up about great work that's happening in very rural places that you may not be on your radar, I would highly recommend that you check those out. We also did a case study with the Aspen Community Strategies Group, Aspen CSG, and they did a case study with us on our communication and storytelling strategies, how to have conversations about transition in places that like Southern West Virginia that have been so fossil fuel dependent in the past. Like, how do you have those conversations with people on the ground in a way that doesn't shut down the conversation, but opens it up for more exploration, more dialogue, and keeps people open to the engagement process. So I just want to conclude really by saying that our community work is really the work that informs our systems work. So change and momentum has to happen at both levels, which is why we're releasing our white paper. We're also offering federal funding training to bring more resources to where they're most needed, so we can bring these historic dollars into Appalachia where they're most needed. We're building capacity at the community level and connecting high-need rural places to these unprecedented federal opportunities. And we feel like we're uniquely positioned to walk alongside our communities, help them harness the power of their stories, and connect them to larger networks and the systems where they can access the necessary resources to bring their plans to fruition. We're really honored to do this work with our communities. And I appreciate it. That's what I have. So I will pass it back to Joanne. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Katie. That is absolutely phenomenal work that you're doing. Next, we'll hear from Amelia Bandy with Edge. Amelia?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Amelia Bandy, and I am the Executive Director of Economic Development Greater East, EDGE for short. And we are headquartered in McDowell County, West Virginia. And, many or most of us are probably familiar with the narrative, like Katie has said. We have a lot of negative stigma and a lot of stereotypes attached to our region of Central Appalachia and what people think about McDowell County. And, we have every reason when you look at some of the statistics and some of the barriers that we face in McDowell County, barriers to good public health, barriers to economic development, it can be challenging, but from an EDGE perspective, what we have decided to do is really take a look around at what resources we have in our community for change. Because one thing that we are adamant about is that we want to create programming that actually makes positive change and makes an impact and starts to see these statistics tick in the other direction. And when EDGE was started, we started out as with a group of people coming together, researcher, my background is in public health, farmers, a pastor. We sound like a bad bar joke, but what this gave us was, you know, everybody having unique perspectives of what community means to them, what the challenges are that they see in their own unique communities, and what things seem to be opportunities for us in this area that we can create around. Cassidy, EDGE stands for Economic Development Greater East. In coming together, one of our first challenges, we didn't want to start a nonprofit. We started out as a producers cooperative because we know in this area that people's ability to make money has always been tied to the land. So we wanted to have a way to be able to help producers, specifically in agriculture, be able to pool our resources together, work on a cooperative model, around group economics, and really go against not having enough resources, not having enough capital or investment to be able to make these things possible. But we learned quickly that in order to be connected to our community, to be able to provide education and awareness and then programming, we needed to have that nonprofit grassroots approach. So we went through so many iterations of how we thought we could be effective. And at first, you know, we looked at everybody else's models, what people were doing in agriculture and other places, and quickly learned that in order to be effective, number one, we have to do what works for us, not what works for agriculture in other places, not what works in big ag, not what works in community work in other places, but taking a unique look at what makes us, you know, different, what makes us special, and how can we create programming around that. So one of our biggest programs right now is centered around creating a workforce development program to really think about how we can create jobs and opportunities for people in our area, because something that happens in all of our rural areas is we're experiencing this population drain where, you know, the youth leave immediately, where people leave because there's no opportunities for jobs in any great way. So taking a look around and looking at our environment, you can see historically, and you can also see now that there's huge potential around food. Food is foundational in every family. It's not unique to farmers or to agriculture. It's important in every single thing that we do. And something that we realize is we have the potential to produce very high quality, high value items in McDowell County and in the surrounding region. And some of these things, just to give you some examples, what we are using is a mountain farming model. We're not using models that are, you know, working in other places. We're working with what the land tells us is going to work here, which is things like we have a specific kind of poultry ranging that we've done pilots on, and we're now expanding up, and we call this mountain range poultry. And it's a completely unique thing to our area where, you know, the birds go up the mountains, they forage, they receive a better diet, a more nutritious diet because of consuming what's around them rather than keeping them, you know, pent up. They produce high quality eggs, they produce high quality meat. And this is something that's unique to our area and can produce very high quality food. We have a training facility that we have been able to develop in collaboration with TNT Organics. Some of you may know Jason Tarr in McDowell County. We have a lease in place with a land holding company. That's something that's unique to us, is that we see that we need to have access to land to make these projects work. So we have 335 acres in collaboration with this land holding company that we are developing a training facility and always working and improving this. And we have things like high tunnels. If you can hear my zoo in the background, I apologize. High tunnels to learn high tunnel growing. We have apple orchards in place. We also have other fruit orchards, peaches, cherries. We have an apiary in place. We have pilots going on around poultry and also goats. We have just producers that come through our program. They go through a 6-month cycle where they can learn all of these things. Our work has even expanded into work that we never really considered at the time, but that is critical to the success of agriculture. And those are things like conservation. So we have a grant with NRCS right now where we are surveying this 335 acre location, and we're addressing things such as flooding and other environmental concerns, which really can stop agricultural production altogether. So by putting conservation practices in place, like building up stream banks, like working on pollinator habitats, and working on forest stand improvement and things like that, we are addressing the land and getting the land in better condition than it was before. And for our, for our sake, it shows the community how important conservation is, how important the land is, the fact that EDGE wants to be a good steward of the land and do practices that are in conjunction with what the land is telling us, is possible. We also have a unique, I think, opportunity that we have where the products that we produce where we are will have a higher total nutrient density, which, we want to do more studies on how that affects overall health when you take these products that have a higher nutrient density and, provide them to our communities, provide them to other markets, and what that means for our health, what that means for your physical health, your mental health. So we see our area truly as a gold mine for opportunity, despite, what the narratives say, despite what it looks like to everyone else. Just as Katie talked about, it's important for us to control our own narrative. It's important for us to get these stories out about, what we're doing. As a country, we are in a consumer country. We consume products from all over the place. We don't, we're not really focused on producing anything. And that's a real area for opportunity for McDowell County, because the products that can come from there not only create jobs by having people come through this demonstration farm and workforce training program. There's also levels to entrepreneurship training there where, they learn, all the elements of agriculture. They are able to focus on, what interests them, and then fine tune that toward the end of the program, toward entrepreneurship, toward building their business, because there's a major opportunity where we are for small business development. All of these agricultural concepts can lead to our producers coming through and starting small businesses of their own. And there are so many opportunities in our area, not just around agriculture. There's many around renewable energy. There's many around tourism. There's so many things that are actually working and positive things that are happening in McDowell County that our community members and other people who are interested in coming to McDowell County to learn these concepts can, truly learn from and get training in, get education and awareness and get exposure to, and then get that business development training so that they are able to start their own businesses. Through this opportunity that they mentioned at the beginning of the program, this Appalachian Rural Food Business Center, we're participating in that.
Just a minute left, Amelia.
Okay. We're participating in that to really turn our area from consumer to producer. And we're doing the business training there to really help these people start their own small businesses, be able to support them with the goal of creating a food system for our region. And, as we see it, food addresses so many issues, from health to the economy. And we see so many opportunities where we are, and we are, trying our best to create programs and pilots and evidence around what we say is possible in this area, so that it not only helps where we are, we have partnerships that make this work possible from the faith community. Jason and I have also started work around connecting urban to rural environments and really understanding how we can exchange resources, how we can strengthen each other by working together. And it's critical. And we see, while the rest of the world might think that, we're the poorest, sickest place, this is a land that's truly has tons of potential, and it's our job to be excited about this, be engaged about it, and also do what we can to inform our communities on what's possible.
Thank you so much, Amelia. It's really amazing to hear about all the work that you're doing with your partners and your organization. I'd now like to invite Wendy Tarr with Arch to join us. Wendy?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Wendy Tarr. Thank you for the opportunity, to be here and share a little bit about our work with this really amazing panel. I'm the executive director of a nonprofit organization called Arch. Stands for Accompanying Returning Citizens with Hope. We are an organization that is focused on helping individuals who are coming out of the criminal justice system, out of our jails and prisons, with their reentry planning and preparation, and kind of following them through their reentry journey. We do a lot of in reach inside the institutions, because there's a lot of opportunity for people while they're there, to start building skills and linking with employers and sort of their future goals. And so we wrote a couple of federal grants and were awarded them. So hence I'm on this panel. So I'm just excited to give you all some hope about that. We're a relatively small nonprofit. And so having been able to land a couple of these federal grants was pretty awesome. And so it can be done. We were awarded 2. I know they talked about the EPA grant, the Collaborative Justice Award. And we also received an award from the Department of Labor, from the Women's Bureau for women in apprenticeships and non-traditional occupations. And so this is really allowing us to scale up our workforce and reentry work around topics of climate change. And we're specifically focusing on solar and solar panel training and installation jobs. So one of the things that I think is also important just for me to share is that, our organization has done a lot of listening sessions and engagement around Southeast Ohio and Central Ohio and the issues that people face around workforce. There's so many barriers that people have because of their criminal convictions. And so with the opportunities that are coming down to address climate change and renewable energy, I really feel like linking the populations that are being left out and that are really primed to receive training and specialization for the jobs of the future, like this is where we want to focus. And so we're just grateful to be able to do that work. So I'll just say a couple things about kind of what we were able to put into our award, in case your organization is something that may have some overlap ideas. So I think one of the things that's really exciting, we're going inside of the women's prison and also a couple of other correctional facilities here in the state of Ohio, to provide the training pre-release for PV1 and certifications for people, and then linking them with employers prior to their release. And our awards also are generous enough that allows us to really focus on some of the things that we know are most critical for people's success beyond just the training, but the wraparound services that people need. So the case management, the linkage to resources in the community, assistance and housing dollars and things of that nature. Those are things that our organization is working hard to do to really make sure that, if people come out with these goals and with these trainings, that they're able to land in the community and be successful. I think why returning citizens, your organization may or may not have an emphasis on this population, but I just want to lift it up as really such a critical importance, because Whether they're people who are currently incarcerated and in that transition, or whether they're individuals in your community who have a past criminal conviction. A lot of times, individuals, especially when they're in these transitions, are looking for new opportunities. They're looking for, training and what to do different in their lives. And when we can invest in education and workforce opportunities for people involved in the justice system, not only does that bring, hope and new opportunity, but, down the line, it helps address recidivism, giving people economic stability, which can, reduce drug use and violence in the communities, leading to a more healthy individuals, right? Healthy individuals, healthy families, healthy communities. And these are things that are really important. One of the things that we looked at when we developed our proposal was leveraging and sort of acknowledging the training and services that are existing inside of our criminal justice system. I saw some people in the chat that I think they were talking about roots of success. Like, that's a program that's been, adopted inside of our criminal justice system. And a lot of people are going through these classes around environmental sustainability and looking at jobs for the, in the future for green jobs. So how can we, reach into those populations and provide them more targeted training to make that a reality? And so this is one of those answers to that. I think another thing that we find in Ohio, and I don't know, in some of the other states that may be represented on this call, if your correctional system has a similar parallel, but we have a Office of Sustainability that is in the leadership and central office for our Department of Rehabilitation and Correction. And so that provides, some of the support that we need to coordinate and kind of come up with some of these projects and the ways they can be implemented, including looking at how we can not only do training and certifications inside the institution, but how can the institution itself be a site for renewable energy and solar, because they consume a ton of energy. And so, that's one of the conversations that we're having for ways to do that. And then also inside of our correctional facility, people are already receiving training. They're getting training in construction, they're getting training in electrical, and they're getting training in wastewater and other things, because the correctional system, it really is like an ecosystem in itself. People that are in there are already working. And so when you are having some of your programs in your communities, how might you build partnerships with those correctional facilities, especially for people that already are gaining some skill sets, to really help build bridges to bring them into your community. Our partnerships are really important. We partner with lots of different folks. We love to collaborate. And one of the things that I'm just super grateful for with our kind of, as we've been building this out, and we're working with Blue Rock Station. So I seen them on the call. So shout out to Annie, to develop using their curriculum and expanding the reach that they're able to give inside the prison through this award for solar training. And then also we're collaborating with Appalachian Renewable Power, right, as one of our partners, because they are one of the employers that really gets what we're doing and has a similar vision. And we're also partnering with a program called Community Renewable Energy, which has generated a bunch of funds sort of separate from our funds, but to put solar panels on government and nonprofit buildings all throughout Central Ohio. And they needed a workforce. And so there's dollars that are being invested there. So we're able to kind of leverage and look at all these different partnerships. And we're working to, as people are going to be trained, and we're still, in the developing stages, but as people receive training and come home, they can land in some of these jobs where they'll be doing, installation on our government buildings and our nonprofit buildings as second chance sites, and then being able to link to those employers long-term for longer-term employment careers. what else did I want to share?
Just
So
about a
I,
minute left, Wendy.
what?
Just about a minute.
A minute. Okay. I think also just another thing that we're looking at when it comes to the prison population, and this is unfortunate, but there's like 50,000 people incarcerated in the state of Ohio in our state correctional facilities, and that is not even the full incarcerated population. That's just the state prisons. And you know that is an unfortunate reality. But most of those people are coming home, and so they really do create an opportunity for those of us. It would be best if we can figure out how to collaborate to help people be successful, and realize that people are more than the worst mistake that they've made. People can receive training, they can improve their lives, and most of these folks do want to come out and do better. And so I just hope that folks will see our neighbors who are coming home or have been involved in the justice system, to extend them some some grace and some opportunities, because together really we all are part of the same community, and to help them be able to be well and to be successful is going to help our whole community be successful. So I really appreciate the opportunity to share.
Thank you so much, Wendy. And now I'd like to welcome Kitty French with ACT Ohio to share more about their work.
Thanks, Joanne, and it's really great to be here today. Thank you, everybody. I am Kitty French, Communications and Outreach Director for ACT Ohio, which stands for Affiliated Construction Trades of Ohio, and our parent organization, the Ohio State Building and Construction Trades Council. So I want to begin by just giving you a quick overview of our organizational structure, our mission, and our outcomes in the current context of what's happening with federal investment and climate investment in Appalachia. So we are a labor affiliation. We work within the North America's building trades unions structure, and with our partners in the international construction unions that represent our membership. And I also want to voice our appreciation for the partnership and the strong work that's being done in Appalachia by ACT West Virginia, the West Virginia Building and Construction Trades Council, and the Kentucky Building Trades. They're doing a lot of work to bring union jobs to the area again, and we'd be remiss if we didn't recognize them for their leadership here. Within the ACT Ohio, in the Ohio Building Trades structure, we represent 14 regional building trades councils. 6 of these regional councils serve Appalachian regions of Ohio and contiguous states, so Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Kentucky. Together, we represent nearly 100,000 union construction tradespeople. These are tradespeople in 12 plus distinct trades, so union affiliates of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, the Plumbers and Pipe Fitters UA Associated Union, plasterers, painters and tapers, laborers, elevator constructors, bricklayers, boiler makers, insulators, union iron workers, sheet metal workers, roofers and waterproofers, sprinkler fitters, and I want to make sure I mentioned the cement masons and plasterers and elevator constructors there. So a really wide diversity in the number of craft trades that we represent. In the state of Ohio, about 144 local unions are within our jurisdiction, serving. Oh yeah, I see your comment. No carpenters. Feel free to drop them a note about the good work we're doing and encourage them to rejoin. 88 counties, including tri-state region of Northern West Virginia and Kentucky and Western Pennsylvania. So these 144 local unions and our signatory contractors only in the state of Ohio privately invest roughly $60 million every year to operate 80 joint labor management apprenticeship programs. And our councils have also launched in partnership with regional community partners, including the NAACP or pipeline programs, which we call apprenticeship readiness programs, to increase representation in the union construction workforce and the construction industry overall of people of color, women, veterans, and as previous presenter mentioned, those who have faced barriers to education and employment in the construction industry, including justice-involved individuals. So about our apprenticeship and workforce development programs in the state of Ohio, we're currently training 82% of all construction apprentices in Ohio, 79% of all construction apprentices who self-identify as people of color, 81% of women apprentices in construction, and 82% of veterans. So that's the building trades apprenticeship footprint just in the state of Ohio. What's our mission? ACT Ohio and the Ohio Building Trades, we're here to grow market share for union construction jobs and to protect workers through policy advocacy on responsible economic and workforce development. And what we mean when we talk about responsible development is new construction or construction that creates local family-sustaining construction careers. So that means that first and foremost, every worker who goes to an industrial or any construction job site in the state of Ohio, in our regions of West Virginia, Kentucky, Pennsylvania, that they are safe, that they're going home to their families safe every day. That's our top priority. Next, we want to make sure that everyone working on that construction site is earning prevailing wage, including Davis-Bacon wages on federal projects. And what this also includes is family-sustaining employer-paid healthcare benefits and retirement benefits. We are one of the few sectors of this economy that still provide for adequate retirement, and healthcare does not bankrupt families. These are benefits that are also available from during the apprenticeship program. So as a new person in the building trades joins an apprenticeship, what they're going to get from day one is prevailing wages, healthcare for their families, retirement benefits, and they're not going to pay tuition for this training. This is learn as you earn on the job. Very good job opportunities coming to Appalachia and all of Ohio. And finally, we also we encourage the use of project labor agreements on large industrial projects, and that includes a heavy emphasis on a local construction workforce that represents adequately the communities in which we build. Specifically here, we're talking about representation of people in color, minority contractors, women, veterans, and justice-involved individuals who are seeking these opportunities. So across the state in the region, what you'll see tied to all of this new development, including federally funded initiatives, is a heavy recruitment and retention focus to make sure that anyone who wants to be in the union construction trades and any of those trades that I just mentioned, that they have a pathway and that they are earning and able to support their family, not just with a job, but with a lifelong career. So how do we achieve that? We achieve that in the Ohio Building Trades and with our partners in West Virginia, Kentucky, Pennsylvania, by being partners in our state's economic and workforce development. So from site selection through a construction project life cycle, we are there to ensure timeliness, predictability, and to help garner regulatory and stakeholder approval on large-scale development. So we're working with government, community partners, and developers on the client side, contractors, all levels. We're in there doing what we can to make sure that these jobs come to our region and that they are family sustaining for working families. Just to put this in the context of Appalachia and what we're talking about here, 32 of Ohio's 88 counties are Appalachian. And I feel it as an Ohio resident and in my practice across the state of Ohio every day. Appalachia, the influence in the state of Ohio, it's not just in these counties that are in the region, it is along every major highway conduit that leads to good jobs. So for example, my family's from Coshocton, Ohio. I grew up in Columbus, but I live in Toledo. And I'll tell you, up here, up Route 23, you can see the influence of Appalachian people who have come up Route 23 to—
Bandy's dog was, and still is, a grief-stricken man. And it wasn't long before investigators restored him to his family and dropped him from their list of possible suspects in the awful.
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Great. So what we're seeing now specifically in Ohio with federal and state level investment, particularly in green and high tech manufacturing, I'm sure everyone's heard of the new Intel investment through the CHIPS Act that's coming to the Central Ohio region. That's going to be a huge project, $20 to $100 billion in new fab plant construction. We have the Honda electric vehicle plant coming. Additionally, to these huge corporate investments, which have been supported by federal policy and investment across the state through 2025, and I got to catch my breath when I say this, we anticipate an additional $159 billion. That's a conservative estimate for development projects coming just to Ohio through 2025. That also includes roughly 20 billion in industrial scale solar in Ohio alone. And thanks to the lobbying efforts of my executive director, Matt Zalossi, and the Ohio Building Trades Executive Secretary Treasurer, Mike Nisley, and all of our regional and trades partners, the majority GOP legislature in Ohio has instituted a pilot program for this industrial scale solar that will provide prevailing wage protections for workers on those jobs. That's a huge win, because what we know is that when we have climate investment, what we're seeing when a power plant in Coshocton County goes out, those folks need jobs. They are worried that their investment coming in, how is it going to make up for the union IBEW jobs of those workers who were once on a coal burner? We're here to make sure that that comes to fruition, that this is not just an empty promise. And so one of our key issues is to make sure and to promote the use of project labor agreements to ensure that every worker has the equity protections, the safety, and the living wage protections of collective bargaining agreements. These are really important agreements. They equalize pay on a construction job site, so that if you are a Black woman and you are an iron worker and you're up there on the steel, just like the 40-year-old white guy who's next to you, you're earning dollar for dollar. We are one of the few industries where you in America can still say that's true for women and people of color, specifically Black women, Hispanic women, dollar for dollar. If you're in the building trades covered by a collective bargaining agreement, you're getting paid for the work that you do.
And we need to, just another minute, Kitty.
Great, thanks so much. What we're doing today, and thank you for helping us to spread the word, is that we want folks to know about the Hydrogen Hub project that's coming to the region down there. We don't have a solid estimate on how many jobs we anticipate from this, but we expect our counterparts in West Virginia to get 50 to 60% of the thousands of construction jobs we anticipated this. Ohio will see 15 to 20%. Pennsylvania will see 15 to 20%. I would encourage everyone to go online, follow ACT Ohio, follow the Ohio Building Trades, follow West Virginia Building Trades and Kentucky Building Trades to stay abreast of all this new development. We're also working on solar. We're finding a lot of grassroots level opposition to solar projects, but we have a third solar field going up now in the tri-state building trades region. And so we're trying to generate community support. We also anticipate in that tri-state building trades region, which is Ohio, West Virginia, Kentucky, some IRA tax credits. And that will be, according to our Secretary Treasurer, John Holbrook of that council, just a huge green energy project in Eastern Kentucky. So I don't want to go on too long. I'm happy to take any questions and really dig into this. Thanks for listening and hearing today. And thanks everyone for your involvement to make sure that through a climate transition, Appalachian workers are not left behind.
Thank you so much, Kitty, and thank you to all of our panelists. We have some time for questions, and again, for those in the audience, we would love to get to some of your questions, so please feel free to either use the chat or Q&A function. Just to get us started, I would love to hear from each of you or whoever would like to respond. Because this panel is part of ReImagine's Strategy Summit for 2024, could you share what you'd most like to see happen over the next 12 to 24 months related to federal climate resources in the region? And feel free to just popcorn in.
I would say first and foremost, we want to make sure that climate development are family sustaining developments for workers, and that they come with safety protections, so that we see climate jobs really paying the same wage scale and being as good for working families as fossil fuel jobs, which are still an important part of our industry in the state of Ohio, and we expect to be part of our all of the above energy mix, which we still promote.
Others, any hopes or what you'd like most to see happen with federal resources over the next year plus?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us at the hub, we would love for these resources to be distributed to places where it's unlikely, to rural places, to distressed communities, to communities who don't have a lot of private investment happening, where it's harder to make development happen, because the need is there. We see the community, like we see communities on the ground being excited about it, and to eliminate some of those barriers for really rural places to access these funds would be a huge win for us, and to have the communities themselves shaping those decisions, right, and being at the table for the kind of investment, the kind of projects, the kind of workforce, and all the related things, housing, and building things that go up, like to have the communities being able to determine that and to really be in the driver's seat for those conversations. That would be a huge win for rural communities in Appalachia.
I would echo that. I think having also like smaller nonprofits and people on the ground that have specialized access to certain populations in need to be able to obtain these dollars is awesome.
I think for us, what we're most excited about is just hopefully being able to access some funds, like you all are saying, in some of the more rural communities, but then doing some exploration around what economic development opportunities are available for people in our communities and other people who may want to come into communities like ours, and also create a positive narrative around what those jobs mean, what those opportunities mean, because as you guys know, we're in coal country, and we don't take a negative stance on anything, but we want to create narrative and create awareness around the positivity around creating jobs in clean energy and renewable energy, and with respect to the climate. And I think for us, it would just be wonderful to learn more about how organizations like ours can expand in those areas.
Great, thank you. And so each of you touched on workforce components to a different degree, and a lot of communities in the region are grappling with workforce development best practices related to these federal investments. Could you share some early learnings or takeaways that you would want to pass on to others who are just beginning to engage in workforce development in other parts of the region?
I can speak to that in terms of recruiting apprentices and retaining apprentices. In the state of Ohio, what we have seen is most successful to make sure that folks, and this is especially present in our Appalachian region, in our tri-state counties, folks who have dealt with drug addiction or who have grown up in economically impoverished areas, that they have the support services they need to skill up in an apprenticeship readiness program that provides them the education that they'll need to then pipeline into those actual union apprenticeships. So for example, a union electrician has like something insane, like a college level mastery of calculus to practice their trade. These are trades that require not just physical endurance, but also intellectual and teamwork. And so Apprenticeship readiness programs and apprenticeships are a solid pipeline for delivering benefits back to workers and making sure that community development provides workforce development opportunities, and not just opportunities that pay minimum wage. We want people to go into these programs and be able, as apprentices, to provide retirement and health care for their families. That's what's going to retain folks in these jobs and get them to the higher levels when they top out as journey people in their careers and make up to 6 figures. So we find that very important, investing in our apprentices and our apprenticeship readiness programs in our communities. It can't just all be talk. You really have to make sure that people have the support to stay in these jobs.
Thank you. Any other panelists would you like to share about your experiences with workforce development that you would pass on to other either organizations or governments working to just sort of get started wrestling with some of these issues?
I would agree with what Kitty shared, but also transportation, especially in Appalachia. If you're doing construction, you have to go out to these jobs, and it's very difficult for people. We developed a program around this that we would like to grow, but I think for the employers to be investing in some of that to help solve those transportation problems, transportation and housing, those are the housing, transportation, job, right? And, the sobriety piece and those things. But I think, really pushing for our government to include those types of things, take that seriously, and also for the corporations who are going to be benefiting from these things to be more holistic in how they partner with organizations to ensure the people that they're bringing onto the workforce have those things, well, especially when they're in the early phases, while they're building up their income.
We're still relatively new at this, but something that we've learned that I think, people may already have figured out before they start is just there needs to be, there's terminology around it. I think ARC uses the terminology of like a career pathway. For us, we're trying to create something that leads to entrepreneurship and small business ownership. So for me, I think the training or workforce development needs to lead them somewhere. It doesn't need to just be a short-term opportunity. It's something that, we are constantly looking for funding or investment to be able to sustain these programs. But as, some of the presenters have already mentioned, there's a lot of barriers for people to even get to work. There's a lot of things that people have to address before they can even commit to coming someplace every day for, 8 hours. So, we're trying to build solutions around helping people have transportation. Even, some of our participants don't have driver's license, there's a lot of barriers there. But just creating programs that don't just initially, our program was people are more employable by the time they leave this program. And that wasn't good enough for us, because employable to what? There were no jobs where we are. So for us, it was, we want to build this food system. We need to create a pipeline of producers and, be able to put them in position to have, business ownership. So.
I just want to jump on that point. That's a really great point. Business ownership. So when we talk about union construction jobs, especially, which is the front line of what you see when you have a development come in, the first jobs you're going to see are hopefully union and family sustaining construction jobs. What we're in the business of doing is making sure that as our union construction workers grow and evolve in their careers, so as someone moves from a pre-apprentice to an apprentice to a journey person, building trades person, we want them to have the support they need if they decide that they want to become a contractor. So we work with partners who can help with bonding issues, specifically for minority contractors. One of the things that I talk about when I'm on the ground with a tradeswomen committee across the state, or with young female apprentices, or with apprentices of color in programs like Building Futures or Cleveland Builds apprenticeship readiness programs, is congratulations on being in the union. This is not just a construction opportunity. This is an opportunity to become part of your union leadership, to become part of your local region's political landscape. So as a union construction worker, you have a voice, and we want you as a new recruit to use that voice.
Thank you. I do want to get some questions from the participants. So we have a few that we've noted. Some of these are more specific, so I may direct them just to one of you individually. I think, Kitty, this first one might be best for you, which is, could you comment on promoting union co-op development in Ohio where workers benefit?
Can you elaborate a little bit and specify what you mean by co-op?
So let's see. This question came from the chat, so I don't want to assume necessarily what was intended here, but I think this may be referring to like worker owner cooperatives, or let's see. I don't know if anyone, Dana, if you have
Yes,
any.
I think that's the right context. So some kind of worker ownership or alternative structure. There's different words for the different types of structures, but the general idea is yeah, where there's some measure of worker ownership. And there is yes, thank you, Kristen. There is a whole panel about it in the next breakout session. So if you aren't able to speak to that, Kitty, don't worry about it. We can just direct folks to that panel.
If I think I understand what the question is, from our point of view, and this might not answer the questioner's point of view, but when we think of labor management cooperation, that is to say a signatory contractor. We want, if you're a non-union contractor, if you have a construction company, if you're a person of color who owns a construction company, if you're a woman of color who owns a construction company, talk to your local union. And if you don't know how to reach them, give me a shout, kfrench@actohio.org. We want, we're looking for contractors who want to sign on and become union signatory contractors, to have access to these job opportunities, to be contractors who are responsible and pay their workers. And so one aspect of what that looks like in execution in Ohio is our joint labor management apprenticeship training programs. These are independent boards created by signatory contractors in partnership with their local union. So for example, IBEW Local 683 runs the Electrical Training Center in Columbus. It's a partnership between the labor union of the IBEW and the contractors. So that's what that partnership look like. The union will take care of the training for apprentices, and then those contractors provide that on-the-job component that's essential to a construction apprenticeship. And those are jointly funded, again, zero taxpayer dollars, and they're graduating the majority of apprentices in every metric in our region. So we would consider that quite a successful model of a co-op business union partnership.
Thank you. And this next question, I think, would be best for Amelia. So this question is, when I hear work around local food systems, farming, and agriculture, the first thing I think of is how enormously difficult and expensive it is to get access to land. What are the strategies out there for getting land out of control of mostly absentee private landowners and into the hands of community?
Some things that we're doing that may be unique to us, we have the benefit of having a relationship with one of the landholding companies, and it's because of the work that Jason Tarr has been doing in McDowell County. And with that relationship, we are now going to be meeting with them again in a few weeks to discuss how we could potentially expand the land lease that we have into other areas of McDowell County. This particular company owns about 25,000 acres in the area. And there are several projects that we have that not only the demonstration, workforce development training, things like that, but there's some other projects that we're looking into, things like hemp production for construction materials for houses and things like that, which would require producers, it would require land. So approaching this company with the benefits of a lease, a long-term lease for agricultural purposes are things that have worked for us. We also are working on another initiative where we are partnering with the faith community to really talk about the issues around land access here and address the coal companies here, address the people who own the the mines who own some of the land that mines are operating on, not to try to shut anything that they're doing down, but to understand if you're an absentee landowner and you're not even really aware of what's going on with your land, but there are opportunities here, and there are community members that are vested in this work, and opportunities around agriculture, around tourism, things that we can build businesses around that we need land for. Just trying to commission them for their participation in either doing some land leasing, doing some partnerships. If they want to be involved in some of the planning around where this starts, inviting them to the table, because to be honest, some of them want to improve the reputation that they have in the area. Some of them do not care about that. They care more about what's in it for us, what's in it for the bottom line. Can we also make money as part of what you all are doing? Are there things that we can do to achieve green credits or carbon credits on these properties that they own by way of the things that we're doing with agricultural processes. So there's a lot of work that has to go into this, but for us, it's more about creating the partnerships and really approaching these absentee landowners to really say, hey, you didn't put a sunset plan in place for this area. What we'd like to do is give our area some tools and some things that we can actually do to create an economic tax base here, create some opportunities. And, it's something that we're trying out. So it's something that's new for us.
Thank you so much. So I know we only have a couple more minutes for the panel, and I'd love to end on just one quick note from each of you about what brief advice you would give to organizations that are just getting started thinking about applying for some of this federal climate funding. And Katie, maybe I could start with you.
Sure. My advice would be to go for it. Other people are going to apply, and you should get in the mix. Give yourself the chance. The hub, we have some really great federal funding training opportunities. One's actually coming up on March 20th and 21st in Bridgeport, West Virginia. It's a 2-day event. We're gonna have we'll have speakers and partners on hand from multiple federal agencies and other folks like this who have drawn down some of these federal awards. So if folks really want to get in the weeds of partnerships and match and budgets and project outcomes, like all those things it takes to not only get the grant, but also to manage the grant, which has been an increasing need from the communities that we've worked with at the grassroots level who don't have a lot of experience managing federal grants. We're really putting the pieces into place to help our communities like figure out, okay, you are the dog that caught the bus, so like now so you receive the grant, now what do you do to manage it? So I'll drop that registration link if folks are interested, but the Appalachian Regional Commission and others are also offering some really great trainings. So I would just say go for it. If you have a project or work that that is has the potential for great impact, don't wait. These federal investments are not going to be forever. So just go for it, and we're happy to help. And I know others on this call would be happy to help as well.
Thank you. Any other final advice for anyone who might be considering seeking this funding?
I would just say, try, if you can, find a grant writer who has experience writing these grants to assist you, so that you don't spend a ton of time and then not have a very competitive application. And then also kind of what Katie was saying, like we're one of those organizations that's relatively new. And when it comes to the grant management, like we wrote in a staff position to manage the grant if we got the grant. Well, actually, we didn't do that, but when we reallocated all the monies, to put a grant manager in. So like you will expand your capacity with the dollars. You just think about what you need, and make sure. I would recommend that you put that into your line item.
Great. Well, I would like to just take this time to thank you all so much for joining us, and thanks to the panelists. This was really excellent, and we appreciate so much you being here to share your expertise and share about the work that you're doing in your communities. I know we have a hard stop right now at 12:20, but Dana, I'm happy to pass it on to you for any logistics or other closing remarks.
Yeah, thank you so much for all of your comments, and thank you to the audience for all of the robust discussion, as well as all of the questions. I know we didn't get a chance to get to all those questions. Feel free to be in touch with us if we can help you with that. But we are going to start moving into our breakout rooms. So thanks again to our panelists. I think most of our panelists are going to be able to join a breakout room, so you might be able to chat a little bit more with them there.
The link for the chat, Dana, or do I need to grab that?
I can probably get it.
If you put it in once, I can share it after that again.
Oh.
So while Dana's grabbing the link for this Mentimeter, you can also, if you see at the top of the screen, if you go to menti.com, you can just type that code in and it'll take you to the same survey, but we're going to do a couple Mentimeter work. You got
Sorry,
it. Okay.
I was having a total technology collapse. Hello. Does that link work? I was not emotionally prepared to put that link in the chat. All right, I'm ready now. Welcome back, everyone. So glad to have you all. So if you click on that link in the chat, we're doing another one of these polls, or you can drop your answer in the chat. We'll move it into the poll. But since today was focused on the idea of the stories we need to tell, and this one I believe can have longer answers, but coming out of today, what are the learnings you have that you want to make sure other people hear? What are the stories we want people to hear about Appalachia? What are the things that we don't want to forget? We love having this event in January because the year is fresh and we have all these ideas. And, what are the ideas that you heard today that you want to make sure don't get lost in the shuffle as we move into the busyness of what 2024 will bring. So that is the question. And what are the stories that we want to highlight in 2024? So these are really wonderful answers. West Virginia is on the rise. I love to hear that. Yeah, we understand some folks have time constraints. We really appreciate the time you're able to share. And then I don't know if any of our facilitators have any answers that came up in their rooms or things like that. So, but feel free to share also, exciting things that came out of your workshops. So I see 23 responses in this survey, which is really exciting. Great. So I think, we'll go ahead and move on to the next question, and this one is just a short answer one, but what do we need more of in 2024? So again, that question of, as we're putting together all of our collective strategies for the year, what are the things we don't want to forget? What are the things we want to continue to build and grow to make sure this work grows, and also to make sure it grows in the right direction, the way that we would hope. And just as folks are answering that question, I'll just do a little homework. We do have an events page, and on that page we archive recordings of all of our previous events, as well as highlight future events that are coming up. We do have a number of those coming up that are relevant to the workshops we had today. We're also open to collaboration on future events as we go through the year. One of the pieces I'll highlight that we're excited about is we've kind of been teasingly calling it our Grant of the Month Club, but the idea is sort of monthly longer sessions for folks to have conversations about grant opportunities that are relevant to some of the unique issues that we have in Appalachia. And so I'm sure that was talked about in the federal funding workshop, but I just wanted to highlight that. And then, as Molly has so graciously provided in the chat, we do have twice a month coalition update meetings. And attending those or getting on the list will help keep you updated. And those really are a more casual event, a casual opportunity for us to collaborate together. Sometimes they have word clouds, sometimes they don't. We like to keep you guessing what you're going to get.
Dana, I'm really sorry. Can I pop in here really quickly?
Absolutely.
So I'm going to put a link in the chat. There are a number of listservs that we have as well. And so I'm the director of special projects. I work a lot with local elected officials. And so if you work with any local governments and you're interested in grant opportunities or, municipal opportunities in real time, please click on that link where I put get involved and go beneath the circles. And click on local government. We also have an opportunities listserv, which is for all folks in community economic development. And then we also have a communications listserv, which has a lot of our press releases and alerts. So you can get all the good stuff over when our reports come out and when our events are going up. So I just wanted to make sure that those listservs are highlighted as well, because there's a lot of traffic on them. I mean, like 0 to 3 emails a month. We don't spam, or a week. We don't spam you. But if you're interested in like real-time stuff, that's where you can get it.
Great, thank you. So I mentioned earlier about Reimagine we have a small staff. We do try to be networkers and collaborators. So we'd love to work with you to make all this happen. So just for the next few minutes, we're going to change paces from this. And so if folks are interested, I'm going to give a quick overview of some of our federal priorities for congressional work in 2024. So if you're still here, I will assume that is relevant to you. If you have questions about the summit, about next steps, about getting contact information of anyone you met with, feel free to drop that in the chat while I'm talking about legislative priorities. So I'm not missing what you're needing from us. So just go ahead and drop that in the chat and one of our staff will help you resolve that. So one of the reasons that Reimagine actually started was because we saw an opportunity to pass some really big legislation around climate and infrastructure issues that our country faced. And we wanted to make sure that Appalachia and our unique issues had a seat at that table to really shape what that legislation looked like. When we started, we did not anticipate that Joe Manchin would become the power whore whatever happened there was not on our minds. I lost the ability to speak for a moment.
Or broken.
Yes, how much we did not anticipate that Appalachia would become the center of U.S. politics. It was quite shocking. But so we're so glad we were there. So we had that moment, and we spent a couple of years at a sprint really trying to think about what Appalachian priorities were. And now we, saw the passage of the Inflation Reduction Act, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, and the CHIPS bill that that created these tremendous opportunities that we spend a lot of time talking about today. That how do we win the win of those policy victories that we had? But we are continuing to keep an eye on Congress and what's next, and thinking particularly still about what are the Appalachian priorities that we want to make sure are on the table. And so, because it takes quite a lot of time and energy to engage in these national politics, I know so many of our partners are so closely engaged in state politics and local politics. We like to be a convener to increase y'all's capacity to engage in national politics, from the local level. And certainly for me in particular, it's my great passion project to make sure that national politics are shaped by the wisdom at the grassroots. Otherwise, it's just a giant waste of money and time. So also collective leverage. You can that's a better way to put it than not being a giant waste of time. But I have been in politics long enough to know that bills get passed that don't have the expertise of folks at the ground level, and they fail in what they intend. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what our federal priorities are for 2024. And then right now we're actually doing a lot of listening to hear from you all about what your priorities are. So if you don't hear what you had hoped, I would love to see in the chat or in other ways that we can talk more about shaping those. And we do have calls twice a month where we talk about these issues. So So one of the biggest things that we're looking at is, I'll start with somewhat simpler, is getting the Farm Bill over the finish line. We worked really hard in 2023 to create a regional Appalachian Farm Bill platform. We worked with dozens of organizations to pull that together. The Farm Bill did expire last fall, and we do have a great blog that we wrote with National Wildlife Federation on how the expiration of the Farm Bill impacts Appalachian issues specifically. So I did just drop that in the chat. What we are hearing now, although anything with congressional guesses is always reading the tea leaves, as I say, but what the tea leaves are telling us now on the Farm Bill is that Chairman Thompson would like to pass the House Farm Bill in March. So we'd be looking at, in February, we'd be looking at thinking about the Farm Bill and making sure that the top priorities that we see for the region are in there. And that includes a lot of things around flooding, regenerative agriculture, as well as food security. And I think we have heard most recently that there are not to be cuts to SNAP, which is really exciting. And certainly if that is the case, that is very much due to the advocacy of Appalachian leaders who are working so hard on food security, which is a big part of the Farm Bill. And I know we have a lot of great farmers and agricultural experts on the call today, so we'll continue that conversation. I wanted to keep that short, but just give that update that we are seeing a March timeline for that. Yes, and Chairman Thompson means G.T. Thompson. He is the chair of the Agricultural Committee, so he is sort of is a Pennsylvania representative who has a very, very large role in ensuring the progress of the Farm Bill. That's his job. That's his committee. And thank you for the questions. If anyone has a question from what I'm saying, someone else is thinking it too. So please just ask. And I can stay on a few extra minutes if folks do just want to ask questions about the legislative process, because as I said, a great joy of mine to make our democracy more democratic. So speaking of things that make me very frustrated because they make our democracy less democratic, the next thing that we'll spend a lot of time thinking about is appropriations. So if you're not aware of the term, appropriations is the process by which our federal budget is created or appropriated. And the way that is supposed to work is that in February, the president shares their priorities for the budget and the president's budget request. And then shortly thereafter, Congress starts putting together their budget priorities. So what that means is that February and March are two of the most important times that we can be at the table to shape fiscal year 2025 appropriations priorities. The ones we've been looking at for Appalachia are a lot around making sure that the agencies that will be implementing the funding that we've won have funding to implement the funding. So in particular, we saw a lot of proposed cuts last year to the EDA, the Economic Development Administration, which is a program that has seen enormous growth and is particularly vital to Appalachian communities. And so we don't want to see programs like that cut that are so important to us implementing this funding, and we don't want to lose the momentum that we have with these agencies. So that will be a big piece of our appropriations conversations, essentially keeping those agencies that to have the budget that they need to continue to grow the programs that our region relies on. So we'll be having those conversations again in February and March. Happy to read anyone into those if they would like. And then, but the other part of the puzzle is that we still haven't finished fiscal year 24 appropriations. So we get to do both at the same time, which is just a dream. It's not a dream, it's terrible. But I wanted to have this fantastic update on what was in FY24 appropriations for you all so that you could really know what was on the chopping block that is important to you. However, Congress made that impossible for me. So what I have instead is the sort of broad mandate that it's a good time to reach out to congressional members to let them know that we need to get a fiscal year 24 budget passed. If we don't pass it, there will be something called the Fiscal Reduction Act will go into implementation, which I don't want to talk about too much because I don't think it's likely to happen, but it's pretty severe cuts across the board. They say it's a 1% cut, but it actually is closer to 9% because of a budget error. So we don't want to see a 10% cut across the board to the federal budget. So we need folks to get this across the line. I will say a lot of partners that I talk with in the region, the congressional representatives, they really want to see these budgets passed, but have had it's just some extremists that are preventing progress. So I would encourage you, if you're interested in doing advocacy, there are partners at Appalachian Voices put together this action link that is just a way to tell your congressman that you want to see a federal budget passed for 2024, so we can look to 2025. And then beyond that, we have some other pieces that we continue to follow, including the implementation of the Climate Corps program. And I suspect there will be some aspects of the appropriations FY 2025 for that. And so if you're interested in the Climate Corps program, we have a link about that and some listening sessions that are coming up actually tonight or in this week and in the next couple weeks to help shape what that program looks like. And then one of the other big new initiatives that we're looking at for 2024 is creating an Appalachian flooding platform. We've been working with a number of partners across the region to think about what we need from Congress and from federal policies to best address flooding in the region and the particular ways that it impacts Appalachian communities. So this is being shaped right now. If you're interested in helping shape that flooding platform, that I think will turn into more coherent congressional strategy and priorities for bills that we want to see and appropriations priorities, et cetera, probably over the summer. But if you are interested in shaping that as we're kind of figuring that out, you can fill out that survey and we'll make sure you're included in those conversations. So those are, so the other kind of tough priorities that actually, Molly, can you go ahead and pull up my next poll while I finish this up? So other priorities that are kind of, so there's two ways that, you work in Congress, and one is, what are the things that are moving? So I encourage you all to fill out this poll first, so that we can be hearing from you all of things, both that I mentioned, things you don't want to see cut, programs that you want to see grow, support that your community needs from the federal government, et cetera. If you want to fill that out. So we will kind of work in two tracks when we look at federal legislation. One is what is definitely going to move that we want to make sure that is as good as possible. And so that is going to be your farm bill. It's going to be your appropriations. Those things have to get passed. And how can we insert our priorities into those? And then the second one is, are there new pieces of legislation that we need to create to solve problems that we know about? And so that flooding policy work is one of our attempts to do that, to how can we create comprehensive solutions. And then another one that we're doing a lot of work is on the reclamation and reforestation of mine sites is another one that ReImagine is working with partners to think creatively about solutions we need. So, if you have other ideas that are kind of in that realm of, I see you guys are creating those. So, yes, the child tax credit is enormously important. So, yeah, David, I can take questions now. I'm actually, we can continue filling out the survey, and I'm actually done with my part. Yes.
Yeah, I just want to say from the viewpoint of a person involved in landscape planning that it's really important, even though the effect one wants to achieve is mitigation of flooding, the way to do that is by thinking of the landscape as an entire functioning holistic system. So one has to plan holistically, even though you achieve the effect, that one effect of flood mitigation.
Yes, absolutely. So I know our partners in the regenerative agriculture, they talk about how soil health decreases flooding, and that's another reason that we're actually looking at reforestation of mine lands, because those degraded landscapes don't absorb water in the same ways that healthy landscapes do. So you have, when we are seeing increased rainfall because of climate change, and we have lands that are less able to absorb water, then we have a compounded effect. So absolutely appreciate that comment. And yes, so we're really at the close. So I'll do a kind of a formal close, and then I will open up for questions if folks have them. You can actually close. Well, if you want to vote on that, that's fine. Go for it. Yeah, that's fine. We don't need that. So, and broadband, thank you, Gina. So thank you all for your time. Like I said, I'll stick around for another minute, but we have had such a wonderful time. We're so excited to shape these materials into our plans for 2024, to go through all the notes for the workshops we weren't able to attend. So as I said yesterday, the greatest gift you all have is your time, and thank you for sharing it with us. It was very generous, and we appreciate y'all. And like I said, I am open for any questions if folks have them.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Would it be possible for ReImagine Appalachia to build a kind of a matchmaking event based on theme and skills and interests of all the different people that have participated in your webinars? Because I think there's so many fantastic resources and skills and knowledge and energy among all these people, that if you could help these people to come together and find ways of working together, ReImagine Appalachia could be a fantastic matchmaker.
Yeah, that's definitely something that we talk about. We actually kind of played around with that. We've played around with different models to do that. One of the reasons we want to have the Grant of the Month workshops is to do kind of matchmaking around folks who are looking at similar grant programs. We had an event we called Speed Updating, where folks kind of quickly shared information that they had, almost like sharing out a business card. And we had like 20 or 30 groups kind of share different resources and technical assistance programs they have. So it's something we're really interested in shaping. I do think, kind of needs to be narrowed down by focus. And so, I think Lou's work with the Appalachian Sustainable Business Network will be an important place to hold that kind of matchmaking. I think Amanda's work with our manufacturing and shuttered coal plant kind of pockets holds a lot of that kind of matchmaking. I'm curious, what y'all think of that. How do we do that as much as possible?
We've tried that in different ways. Haven't figured out the exact way. I know Lou has dreams of a matchmaking app, I think.
Yes. To be continued. I think it's a great idea.